Hello and welcome to this video, and today we're going to be talking to you parents again about homeschooling and some of the current concerns about, well, geez, how many days should I homeschool? Well, we'll discuss all those possibilities in this video. Okay, parents out there considering homeschooling, you got that question, right? Of course, we need to know, what does the state require? What are their legal requirements? Second, you want to know, what about your own needs? What are those family needs? Developmental age of your children, how will that factor in? What are the benefits of different schedules? 3-day schedule, 4-day schedule, 5-day schedule, 6-day schedule. Would that even be off the table? What would that look like? How would that balance out with your family dynamics and life and work and all that, the flexibility? What would all that look like? And of course, we want to see how it plays out in the real world. So we'll be talking about all of that in this video. Typically, states is not about the number of days a week, right? They have days in a year, and they define the length of a school day. So, for example, some states, if you have an early dismissal because of weather, maybe comes up, a snowstorm comes in, they dismiss kids early, that can still count as a full day if you went to a certain point in the day. And most states have some sort of requirement, like 180 days or 175, give or take, depending on the state that you're in. So there are a number of days and hours per day, but not necessarily, and again, you'd have to check this with a different state, but not necessarily a number of days per week, right? So that gives you flexibility in that, based on, typically it's the days in a year and hours in a day. And when you begin to figure out your own schedule, looking at who's doing the instruction, how much supervision does your child need? In other words, how old are they? How independent can they be? Can they be left alone to kind of be on their own? All that's going to factor in with how you begin to structure the time. Do you maybe get them involved in some community group during a certain number of hours in the morning every day that might be able to count as homeschooling, because maybe it has something to do with music or maybe athletics, so you're getting gym credit or music credit, something like that, but you aren't necessarily teaching them, so you can do your work things. So looking at all those different pieces based on the age of your child is going to help you figure out the length of your school day and how many days you might be doing it in a week. So the developmental need of your child, your work schedule, those things will begin to factor into what your day begins to look like. And that can begin to kind of shape whether you're thinking whether it's going to be a 3-day week. Maybe you go 3 days, but they're longer days. And maybe you go 4, 5. Maybe it's 6 because you have a different view of what homeschooling is. And that 6th day, maybe your child is involved in a travel sports thing and they're traveling a lot, but that can count as physical education credits potentially, right? So, we get that. Maybe they get involved in scouting and they're doing things for scouting, and you can tie in some of those things that they're doing in scouting for some elective type coursework. So long as you begin to try to document what they're doing in those other activities and how it relates to their educational pursuits and goals and requirements, then you begin to look at all these other activities and things they're doing, and then you might begin to say, oh, well, geez, they do 6 days a week, because even though they're doing, fun things on a weekend, Friday, Saturday, what have you, we can give them credit for those things because they fit these educational goals and objectives, etc. So you really kind of begin to look at all of that things, and you might be really surprised at the number of days you quote homeschool when some of those things would not be like being in a traditional school. So many times parents think, oh, I've got to be in a traditional school setting where I'm in a classroom 5 days a week from 8 to 2:30. Not necessarily true at all. So looking at all those factors will help you shape out what those days look like and how many days a week you are doing homeschool in whatever configuration you're calling that. One of the great benefits of being a homeschool family is this idea of balancing things out and flexibility. So as I just kind of alluded to in this last section about the number of the days a week, lots of parents, when they're thinking about that, they're thinking about being in the classroom where they're doing book work type thing or attending an online lecture or doing something like that. All right, so yep, that's in all probability going to be a significant part of what your homeschool may look like. But again, that flexibility of even family vacations become field trips, right? How can you tie in where you are going on your family vacation to some sort of homeschool experience? Those organizations I talked about earlier, that flexibility is how can I tie that into my homeschool curriculum so that's part of it. Your swim lessons, your music that you're doing outside, the martial arts that you have your kids signed up for. How can I utilize those experiences as part of my homeschool? So the homeschooling, that flexibility goes beyond just what we think of as traditional schooling, right? You want to learn how to utilize those opportunities as part of your homeschool. So then those days that they're doing some of those other things count as part of your homeschool curriculum and as your homeschool coursework. So real world examples, let's take a look at a few different families who had different kind of schedules. So one family had a 4-day where their child was doing most of that, what we think of as traditional homeschool work, right? Those 4 days were focusing on getting their reading, their writing, their history, their science in, their all those kind of core curriculum stuff. And then the other days were involved in sports and clubs, kind of organization things, and we're out in the community more, field trips with families, longer weekends, just a lot more flexibility to do those things. The other family was much more of a traditional 5 days, typical kind of school schedule. They were building in that time all those core curriculum things, doing their work at a, in a home classroom setup. So in that homeschool setting, that worked for them. And they were involved in some of the school, like extracurricular activities offered through their local school system. So in that case, their schedule looked much more like a traditional school schedule. The actual, what they were doing within the classroom was significantly different. But as far as schedule goes, it was pretty similar. And another one looked more like a 6-day approach, but if you really looked at those 6 days, it was doing all those things. And there was no, you might be doing swimming on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they were involved in scouting on certain nights, and then classes on these days at these times, and other classes here, and then taking an online class, going to some other, the high school student was taking a local university course. So that flexibility ended up doing 6 days, but that didn't necessarily mean that there was like all work and no play kind of thing, right? So they built in all those other activities that the kids were doing that were fun and enjoyable and stuff. And don't get me wrong, not that like academics aren't necessarily fun or enjoyable, but the things that we think of like when kids are out of school that they're doing, that also just kind of built into the school life, which is really what it is for most students, right? Most traditional students will have sporting events or things like that going on the weekends. So that's what this homeschool family did. Once again, I hope that as you listen to what we shared in this video about, schedule, just opens your eyes a little bit to the possibilities. And again, for parents, a lot of it depends on your mindset and how you go about trying to do this and your goals and objectives. I encourage you to subscribe to our channel and check out all our other videos on all kinds of different topics. And you also might be interested in specifically watching the video, how do you graduate if you're homeschooled? And as always, I wish and hope I will see you in another video.